Zimbabwe, once hailed as the jewel of Africa for its promising economy and breathtaking landscapes, has been marred by a decades-long economic nightmare. This nation's tragic tale is a stark reminder that even the most promising of countries can experience an abrupt and devastating descent. But what led this once prosperous country into a spiral of economic turmoil and political upheaval? Could it happen anywhere else? What role did political decisions play in this economic tragedy? And what lessons can the world learn from Zimbabwe's story? Let's find out. Before Zimbabwe became an independent country, it was under the rule of a British colony called Rhodesia, led by Ian Smith. During this time, many of the resources and wealth in the country were controlled by the white minority, and the black majority faced a lot of hardships. 1. Land seizure. Black people were pushed off their land and made to live in separate areas. The fertile land was taken from them and given to white veterans, often retired soldiers. Black people were not allowed to own land in these good areas. 2. Exclusion. Black Zimbabweans were not allowed to participate in politics, attend the best schools, or live in the nice parts of Rhodesia. In 1965, the United Kingdom was allowing its colonies to gain independence. However, Rhodesia, under Ian Smith, wanted to keep controlling the country, even though the black majority wanted power. This led to a conflict, and in 1965, Smith's government declared independence from Britain, which was against the rules. The United Kingdom, the Commonwealth, and the United Nations condemned this and imposed economic sanctions on Rhodesia because they thought it was a racist action. Only South Africa and Portugal supported Rhodesia, and no other country recognized it as a state. These sanctions made it difficult for Rhodesia to trade with other countries. At the same time, two political groups, ZANU, led by Robert Mugabe, and ZAPU, led by Joshua Nkomo, started gaining strength among the black majority. They wanted to free the country from the white minority rule. From 1964 to 1979, the Second Chimurenga War happened. It was a fight between the white Rhodesians and the black forces of ZANU and ZAPU. This war was also known as the Rhodesia Bush War and aimed to end the unfair white rule. China and North Korea supported ZANU, while the Soviet Union and East Germany helped ZAPU. With no outside support, the Rhodesian government was overthrown. In 1980, Rhodesia became Zimbabwe, and Robert Mugabe became the first president of the newly independent country. Zimbabwe finally had majority rule. In the first decade of independence, Zimbabwe worked on improving health and education. The economy still followed a command system, where the government controlled many things. Zimbabwe's government believed that it should play a big role in the country's development. During the 1980s, Zimbabwe's economy grew well, mostly because of good farming output. However, droughts in 1982 and 1987, along with a world recession, hurt the economy. These events made the government decide to change its economic policies. Starting from 1990, Zimbabwe tried to make its economy more open through a program called the Economic Structural Adjustment Program, also called the ESAP. This program aimed to achieve economic recovery by balancing the budget, helping the private sector, and allowing free trade. However, this change didn't work as expected. The economy didn't grow well, and this was partly because local industries faced tough competition from other countries due to the open market. Although it benefited the agricultural sector, it caused problems for local manufacturers. After ESAP, the government tried another program called the Zimbabwe Program for Economic and Social Transformation, also known as the Zimprest, from 1996 to 2000. This aimed to improve the situation, but it didn't work well due to bad fiscal policies, growing budget deficits, and low foreign currency reserves. When prices are rising quickly, the money you have may not be able to buy as much as it used to. This is what happened in Zimbabwe. Inflation went up a lot, and regular people, the consumers, felt the pinch. They couldn't afford as much because their wages didn't increase enough to keep up with higher prices. To help consumers, the government tried to control prices in 2007. They wanted to make things cheaper, but this backfired. Producers couldn't keep up with the demand for low-priced goods, so there were shortages. People bought and hoarded cheaper items, and this caused even more problems. Producers ended up losing money because they had to sell goods for less than they cost to make. There were long lines to buy basic things. Because of these issues, a lot of economic activity moved to the informal sector, which means people started doing business off the record. About 80% of the economy operated informally, although it's hard to measure because it wasn't being tracked properly. The main problems caused by inflation and price controls were 1. An illegal market where goods were sold at higher prices. 2. Shortages of essential items. 3. More people doing business informally. And 4. Zimbabweans going to other countries to buy and sell things for foreign money. Now, most of Zimbabwe's economy operates in the informal sector, and a lot of it uses foreign currency. But there's still a strong demand for the local currency, even though most stores couldn't legally sell their goods in foreign money. Many companies had to close, and schools began charging fees in foreign currency or fuel coupons, especially when world oil prices went up. This made sense because the US was facing economic problems, and foreign currency was seen as a safer way to store value. The government could have used a more advanced form of dollarization by using these fuel coupons as a type of currency to regain people's trust. However, they didn't do it, partly because of regional politics. Due to these factors, many Zimbabweans preferred to keep their money in non-monetary assets or in foreign currency like British pounds, US dollars, and South African rands. Because of the economic crisis, many Zimbabweans left the country, hoping to send money back home through services like Western Union to help their families deal with hyperinflation. The policies the government tried so far didn't work well. They tried things like controlling prices and freezing them, but these measures only helped temporarily and didn't solve the underlying problems. Price controls, for instance, didn't work because they tried to set prices for a lot of different goods, which was too complicated. Price freezes also didn't help because they required constant monitoring and caused corruption. As the crisis continued, power in Zimbabwe became more centralized, meaning that only a few people in the government made most of the important decisions. Once hailed as the breadbasket of Africa, Zimbabwe has undergone a tumultuous economic transformation, leaving its citizens grappling with a myriad of challenges and uncertainties. For many years, Zimbabwe was known for its leader, Robert Mugabe, and the struggle for independence. Now that he's gone, the country is still facing many problems. Millions of Zimbabweans are going to bed hungry, relying on help to survive. The situation is very close to becoming a catastrophe, and people are wondering who or what can save Zimbabwe. In a place called Mbeere, a big slum near Harare, more than 500,000 people live in tough conditions. They came here to escape poverty in rural areas, but they still struggle to find work. Finding a full-time job is nearly impossible, and inflation is very high. Many Zimbabweans, in fact, about half of the population rely on aid just to get by. Zimbabwe's infrastructure is in bad shape. 2 million people in Harare haven't had running water for months, and there's a fear that diseases like cholera and typhoid might become widespread. The country is also dealing with a power crisis because there's not enough electricity. The power station in Bari, which uses coal to generate electricity, has run out of spare parts, causing frequent blackouts. When Zimbabwe's military removed Robert Mugabe from power in 2017, people had hope for better times. The new president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, promised to improve the economy and make Zimbabwe a middle-income country by 2030, but things have gotten worse. The government removed fuel subsidies, which led to protests and a violent crackdown. It's as if Mugabe's problems never really went away. In recent years, Zimbabwe's currency became almost worthless, and the US dollar became the main currency people used. Now, there's an attempt to bring back the Zimbabwean dollar, but only in limited amounts to stop illegal money trading. Life in Harare might look somewhat normal, but if you look closer, you'll see that people are desperate. Hospitals are struggling, and most doctors are not working because their pay has become almost worthless. The government blames international sanctions for the country's problems and doesn't admit its mistakes. Even though Mugabe is gone, it seems like Zimbabwe is still facing many of the same problems. People are still waiting for the country to improve. Now, what do you think about the struggles faced by Zimbabweans due to inflation and economic instability? How do you view the role of the government in trying to control prices? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it informative and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content.